All right, listen, this is episode 37. Listen, I don't have my glasses on today because my eyes ain't that red. But listen, man, I'm getting my fall skin. You know, I get a little pecan brown, my fall skin. But listen, this is episode 37. And the word of the day is Christians. The name we were never meant to have, right? I know some of y'all are going to be like, okay, Lamar, what are you talking about, man? I'm talking about something really biblically here. People? Yes, biblically, people. All right, so listen. So today's word of the day is one that billions of people use every single day, but very little understand where it came from. You understand? They don't know where it came from or what it truly means. So the word of the day is Christian, right? We've heard it our whole lives. It's written on churches and songs and creeds and on social media bios. But what if I told you Yahuah never called us Christians? What if I told you that the word didn't even come from heaven, but from Antioch, a Greek city filled with pagan worship and Roman influences? What if I told you that, right? What if I told you that? Because that's where it came from. What if I told you the name you've been taught to identify with is not the name that heaven recognizes? What if I told you that? So let's get deep today, right? Not to divide, but to define. Not to divide, but to define. So to find out, how can I say it? To find out not who religion says we are, but who Yahuah calls us to be. See, that's the question, y'all. That's the question. So let's talk about the origin of the name Christian. Let's talk about the origin of the name Christian. Excuse me, y'all. It comes from Acts 11:26 says, and the disciples were called Christians in first Antioch, right? Now notice carefully, it didn't say Yahuah called them Christians. It does not say Yahushua, Jesus, called them Christians. It says they were called. They were called in Antioch, right? So who called them that? Well, it wasn't the apostles. It wasn't the Hebrew believers. It was the people of Antioch, a city known for Greek culture, Roman governance, and idolatrous temples. Polytheism. That's where it came from, right? In other words, Christian was a nickname given by outsiders to label the followers of the Messiah. It came from the Greek word Christianos, right? Meaning belonging to Christ or the party of Christ. Now, I know some of you can be like, well, I refer to myself as a Christian. Oh, let's see if you do that after you hear this message, right? So, but here's the thing. That's a Gentile interpretation of a Hebrew reality, right? The true name of the Messiah is Yahushua HaMashiach, right? Yahuah saves the anointed one. So when they said Christianos, they were not speaking from revelation. They were translating a mystery they didn't understand. That's why you got to study the word. A mystery that they did not understand. So I'm gonna start off on this section right here. What Yahuah actually called his people. Yahuah. Hey, that's Jesus. His real name ain't Jesus. But hey, we can call him that. He understands what we're saying. But that's not his real name. But anyway, that's another conversation for another episode. All throughout scriptures, Yahuah never once called his people Christians. He called them the children of Israel. Deuteronomy 14:2. Sons and daughters of Zion. Isaiah 62:11. Saints. And I can never say this word. Is in my head. It's doggy, what's that word? It's Kodosium. Quadushim. I might be saying it wrong, meaning set apart ones, right? That's in Psalms 55, right? And the disciples, it was called the disciples in Matthew 28:19, believers in Acts 5:14, and followers of the way in Acts 9, right? So the last one is powerful, right? Followers of the way. And why? I'm glad you asked. Because in John 14:6, Yahuah said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So that the early believers identified not by a label, but by a path. Not by a label, but by a path. They didn't belong to a religion. They didn't belong to a relationship. And this is something we got to understand. See, when the world saw their power, their unity, and their miracles, they needed a label to categorize them. So they called them Christians, just like they call us Americans, just like they call the Mexicans Mexicans, right? But heaven calls them chosen, us, right? So let's have a theological breakdown why the name matters. I like using the word theological because it makes me sound smart, people. Yes, I always do that, right? So let's look at that, right? So we do know that names carry authority, right? In Hebrew culture, names were never random. They were purpose given, right? They defined purpose, identity, and assignment. That's why Yahuah changed Abram to Abraham, Sarah to Sarah. See, you always got to put that breath in there. And Jacob to Israel, right? When you accept a name, you accept an identity, and every identity has a spiritual source. Yes, it has a spiritual source. So when the church took on the title Christian, it was unknowingly accepting a Gentile label that diluted its Hebrewic roots and covenant connection. That's why many believers today identify more with religion than with relationship, because we've built our identities around a name heaven did not authorize. Never authorized the name Christian. No, didn't. Yahuah didn't call us to be Christians. He called us to be his people, his ambassadors, his bride, his set apart ones. We're supposed to be different, people. Let's go to 1 Peter 2:9 when it clearly says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, right? That should show forth the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. That's not the description of a Christian. No, it's not a description of a Christian people. See, that's the description of a kingdom citizen, right? That's the description of a kingdom citizen. So let's talk about Antioch and the birth of a label, because that's why I dug deep into it, because a friend of mine sent me something about Christians, so I decided to do this episode. So let's revisit Antioch, right? It was one of the largest cities in the Roman Empire, a city for commerce, Greek philosophy, and idol worship. Keep that in mind. Idol worship, people. Idol worship. So when the disciples came preaching Yahushua, the people of Antioch saw them as strange. Not Jews, not Romans, not pagans, but something different. They mocked them and said, these are the Christian followers. These are the Christ followers. The Christians. Oh, that's when that name was birthed. The Christian. So the name Christian wasn't a divine title. It was a social nickname, right? Possibly even an insult. And yet, over time, the early church, assemblies began to adopt it. But listen, by the time of Emperor Constantine in the 4th century, Christians had become an institution and state religion. And with it came, think about it, with it came Romans influences, pagan customs, and the stripping away of the sacred Hebrew names. See, the name of Yahuwah was replaced with the Lord. The name of Yahushua was replaced with Jesus. And the followers of the way were replaced with Christians. The followers of the way, we're talking about of the way, is Yahushua, you call Christians. So what began as a covenant tuned into culture, how can I say, what became as a convenient tune to the culture, what began as identity became a religion. I think I said that right. Sometimes I get kind of mixed up, y'all. I'm not perfect, okay? So let's talk about rediscovering our true identity in Yahushua, Yahuwah, and Yeshua. All the same people. It just means something different. But the Father is restoring truth in this generation, people. He's calling his people back to identity, not denomination. So all this denominational stuff, stop it, people. In John 17:6, Yahushua said to the Father, I have manifested your name to the men you gave me out of the world. That means Yahushua's mission was only salvation. It was revelation. It wasn't only salvation, it was revelation. He came to restore the Father's name, nature, and identity to his people. So who are we? Who are we, people? Who are we, right? Who are we really? We are the children called out. How can I say it? I gotta say this right. We are the called out ones. That's right. We are the called out ones. In Hebrew, it's I think it's Kaehi, Kahila. I can't say it right, y'all. I'm trying. I think it's Kahila, with the Greek translation as ecclesia, right? That means the assembly, the congregation, the set apart body, right? We're not Christians. We are sons and daughters of Yahuwah through Yahushua HaMashiach. We are ambassadors of the kingdom. We are a royal priesthood, right? We are the elect, the redeemed, the set apart. So when you know who you are, religion can't redefine you. When you know who you are, religion cannot redefine you. When you know who you are, people. Yes, they can't. So let me see if I can reflect on some of this. Sometimes I get a little confused because I don't have no notes. Let me see if I can reflect on this, right? The dangers of calling ourselves Christians is not in the sincerity of the heart, right? Many people love Yahushua deeply and call themselves Christians. The daughters is in, how can I put it? The danger is I gotta get it right. The danger is ignorance of origin. I think that's how I want to say it. The danger is ignorance. So when you don't know where your name comes from, you don't know what spirit it carries. The early believers walked in authority because they knew whose they were and what their name carried. So I can go to the book of Philippians 2:9. It says, wherefore God also have highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name. That name is Yahushua, right? So when you speak his true name, you are declaring his nature. Yahuwah saves. When you call yourself his children, you are claiming the inheritance of his covenant. You are claiming the inheritance of his covenants. I know I got a little twisted around, y'all, because I'm still trying to think. I got to start writing down notes because doing this thing off the top of my head sometimes get me a little confused. So who are we? That's the most important thing. Who are we? Well, we are not defined by Rome. We are not defined by Antioch. We are not defined by denomination, people. Holiness, Baptist, AMZ. We're not defined by that, right? We're defined by covenant. We are followers of the way. We are the set apart ones. We are the Quadoshim. If anybody can help me say this, is Quedoshim. I never get it right, y'all. We are the children of Yahweh, redeemed through Yahushua Hamashiach. Like, let the world keep his label. We will keep his name. Because names fade. Religions divide. But identity and Yahweh remains forever. Forever. So today's word of the day is Christians. Not to condemn, but to correct. Because it's not about what the world calls you. It's about what he calls you. I think I said that right. And he calls you chosen. He calls you his. He calls you set apart. He doesn't call you Christian. So I'm not a Christian, y'all. I'll tell you that right now. Don't call me no Christian. I'm not a Christian. Right? And so here's my final words, because I'm gonna make this quick. I'm gonna be kind of long. I'm just trying to remember this stuff in my head. Let me make this quick, right? This is the word of the day, episode 37. Christians. Please, everybody, walk in your true identity. Don't settle for a title. Embrace your covenant name. Because the world may call you Christians, right? Or call us Christians. But heaven calls us children of Yahuah. That's what heaven calls us. Sons and daughters. Children of Yahuah. That's what heaven calls us. He don't call us no Christians. But listen, thank you for staying tuned into the word of the day. But listen, no matter what you think of me or who you believe I represent, please keep Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahushua Hamashiach first in your life. And this is episode 37, the word of the day. And the word is Christians. Stop calling yourself Christians. If you want to call yourself Christians, hey, adopt what Antioch called you. But I'm going to call myself what God called me. A child, the set apart ones. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Have a great day, y'all.